Dun, 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 dun.
Ta-da!
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. So glad you joined us today. This is Afternoon Astonishment. Welcome to Conjuror Community. We want to say welcome. I'm Adam Grace. I'm here with Steve Barcelona, and I'm here with Alexander Slimmer, the best of Conjuror Community.
Welcome
And today we're going to take a look at the evolution of bird magic, and it's kind of a show we've been excited about doing for a while, and I'm real happy about the footage that we've got today, because I don't know how many of you guys out there are active bird magician fans like myself. How about on the panel? Yes?
Oh, I mean, it's in my DNA.
I'm not a practitioner, but definitely a fan, and I know plenty of folks that do the stuff. I've spent a lot of time with, guys like Steve that know the ins and outs of it, and I admire it from afar. So I'm definitely going to be not contributing as much as, because I don't know. You guys are the experts. You guys actually have like hands-on experience with this stuff. So, I'm in awe of all of that you put in that kind of work and have that kind of relationship with those birds. It's a really cool thing.
It is something Steve and I have in common. At one time in our lives, both of us did a dove act, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had made a cage in my basement out of window screens. So they were like, it was gigantic, I didn't think about there was no way to clean it, but it was gigantic, and I had like 15, 20 doves in there, and
that's a lot of doves, bro.
It was a lot of doves. Yeah.
How many did you produce on stage? Did you produce?
See, that was kind of the thing, I guess I got a deal on them. I don't know how I ended up with 15 doves. Someone gave them away, something. I don't know what happened. But I mean, if you do more than 4, it's a lot. It's a lot of planning and a lot of, more than 4 productions.
A lot of care for 15 animals. I mean, if it was like 15 dogs or 15 cats, like it's a lot of work.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of work in training and keeping, it's just a whole thing.
Do they have like a band, like a wristband, so which one does what thing, or how does that work?
And that's exactly the key to the whole thing, is that the same bird does the same thing every time. So when the bird gets put in whatever it is you're going to do, it has some sense of what's going to happen. Right. Wow. You put a different color band on each. You could put a band, a ring, something on their leg that is completely unnoticeable.
So not what you were saying.
Really know which from which.
Like the red one does the circle, the blue one.
Yeah, like the red one does balloon to dove.
No, I was talking about dying. Like I was making a joke. You don't like the dying of the birds.
We're talking doves, man. I'm really serious.
No, I was just saying.
No jokes. Serious, man.
I know. I was just trying to make the joke about dying your birds. You said you don't like to dye your birds. You said
you guys are getting way ahead.
We're too far down the road.
Way ahead of us.
Show something first.
First of all, let's go back to the beginning, okay? Because there's the man who started. We're going to show you Lance Burton. Don't worry. All right. But before we do, and if you've never seen this, this is some of the most exciting footage out there, because the whole idea of bird magic, there was an evolution to it, a beautiful evolution. It goes way back, but we wouldn't even be where we are today if it weren't for the man himself, Channing Pollock. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the OG Channing Pollock's Dove Act, and you guys are going to see what class was like. And this is you'll recognize the evolution of this thing, because this is really where it all started in the modern age. All right, let's take a peek. Here we go. That and that. Here it is. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
The handsomest man in Europe and elsewhere, and one of the best magicians in the world, Channing Pollock.
He is a handsome man, isn't he?
Damn.
That was good.
All of them, man.
Yeah. All his steals are on the offbeat.
Yeah, right?
turning this music down so we can just discuss a little bit. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Oh, he didn't do anything.
Twin.
This is that one that Johnny does.
Twin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the best ones. That's so neat. I love that one. That's
Baffled me for years. I haven't seen this footage in a while, you guys. Steve, it's amazing how similar this is to Lance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And those were not Norm Nielsen palming cards.
right. I did play with that stuff a little bit, so I do know what's involved in making cards actually be useful for that kind of stuff. Wow, that's so good.
Channing Pollock was I think he was with the Chavez School of Magic. I think he graduated or studied or whatever.
I knew
So
that.
he got all that classical training. Look at that.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
A lot better than that guy we watched last night with Dove from iPad.
God, man. Wow. Yeah, that was awesome.
Oh, I looked away. Hold on, I gotta rewind it. I looked away and missed it.
Now this is footage just from a movie.
Yeah, exactly. I forget what the name of the movie is, but this is cut out of a movie. This is like a section in a movie.
So that's why there's edits and stuff like here.
Yeah.
The cameras shoot this in slow motion, and yet...
Look how beautiful.
That's really hard to do well. Like
That's
that.
He looks so
You've seen
relaxed.
a million people do it bad.
Yeah, we have an amazement plan in Conjuror Community that teaches this almost exact routine, but I have never done it this well, ever in my life.
Dude.
Oh, you gotta love that. Greg Brentz used to do
Wow.
that. Yeah.
Wow.
Look at this. So on the offbeat again, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Something about that combination of birds and classical card manipulation goes together like cream and coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, because we haven't really heard him speak yet, right? It's all just
Yeah, no, he hasn't said a word.
No,
at all.
that's I don't think he does.
that makes it a leap.
Yeah.
So this is a classic Spanish right here.
Watch the pigeon.
Oh! So badass. So
We've been calling
badass.
him Dubs this whole time, and he says, "Watch the pigeon."
So right from there, he goes to the vanishing cage.
Oh, okay. And so
There's
then
somewhere there's a clip that goes farther because that's where she's been putting the birds. But so beautiful, right?
how many birds were there in that? Do you know?
That look, I don't think I remember or I counted.
6, I believe.
7, I was going to say. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite a few. They're also, what I find interesting is their tail trimmed. So if you notice, all their tails are really short because he's cut them so that they're more compact. Because sometimes the tails can be 5-6 inches long and they get real ratty looking, just from them hanging out in the cage. So you're always having to trim it up and make them look presentable,
And I've noticed with a lot of the folks that do birds, once they produce it, they'll do something like give it a toss sometimes, and it'll like do a circle and come back to their hand. He didn't do a lot of that stuff there. Like,
Well, I don't think he did it at all. Did
Yeah.
he?
No, I think that's part of the evolution. Of
Yeah,
what was
yeah. I
happening.
mean,
okay.
so if I remember the story correctly, there was a magician from Mexico who I don't remember his name, but he produced 1 or 2 doves during his act to punctuate something he was doing. and somehow, and I think Harry Monty might have told me the story, and I don't remember. I wish I remembered it. Somehow Channing Pollock came up with some birds. Like he just ended up with some birds. And that's where the whole thing starts from. You know, he got the idea, because I don't think there's anybody, there's that Mexican magician, but I don't think there's anybody really before that.
That we're doing
as this type of a bird act.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this type of a bird act.
And do you know when the idea of hooking up a bird and having a bird hidden in that specific way, is that original to Channing Pollock, or is that the magician we're speaking of before Channing, or do you know?
You know, if I was a smarter man, I would have researched this stuff before this, and I would know the answer. But I think he's the originator of a lot of that stuff, a lot of the concept of it.
Because that's a pretty big deal to work that out, the way he's hiding those birds and the way that you're hooking up and getting those birds. Like, that's pretty innovative stuff if that doesn't come from somewhere before him.
I think those methods were used, but not for birds.
Okay. They were used to produce other items.
Yeah, in one way, shape, or form.
Gotcha.
So
he was taking older technology.
But now that I think about it, like Thurston did some horrific things to birds.
Sure. Yeah. There's stories.
Yeah. So actually, this is really the birth, I would say, of the modern.
Oh yeah, Channing Pollock is definitely the father of the dove act. When you think of it as a dove act, I mean, he's really the first guy that everybody knows that did it. And of course, we know that Joseph Gabriel and James DeMare and Shimada and Lance Burton.
Sperry.
Yeah, Tom Sony. We've got
Sony was an amazing dove magician.
Mm-hmm. As well as Jason Byrne, who was amazing magician, Marco Carvo, Charlie Mag, Darcy Oak. There's tons of them, right?
Yeah.
Jonathan David Bass. So there's a lot of key names that are in the contemporary dove magic. Everybody has their own little twist on it that they put on the genre. Like, we were talking about Greg Fruin, who's got this very modern approach, and it's very slick. And I almost say, he hits those marks. It's very refined. I mentioned Marco, and he's another slick, but a more European approach to it. I would say that we've got Dan Sperry on the other end of the spectrum doing sort of playing with contrast and all that, using the doves. But it all comes back to this guy, Channing Pollock, because he really, what he did is he defined a genre. And invented a genre.
Yeah, everybody they saw that and they were like, I want to do that. Here's what kind of bothers me about it. Okay. And listen, I love it, but when you look at it from the way we look at magic now, okay, because now we think a lot more about discrepancies and why you're doing things and motivations than I think they really did, at least in the first half of the last century. You know what I mean? So if you notice, he comes out, he produces a silk. He then produces a bird. The assistant comes over, he hands her the bird and the silk, and then he grabs another silk exactly the same as the one he just gave her and produces another bird. Then she comes over, he gives her the bird and the silk. He grabs another silk that looks exactly like the one he just had in his hand. So it's as if like the silk is like, okay, this one's used up now. Let me get a fresh one. It's like, and that's like a discrepancy that always bothered me. That now I always chalked it up to back in the day, people didn't think about it that hard. Right?
I got to tell you, I've seen that clip a couple times. I didn't think about it like that at all. I didn't see that at all. To me, all I just saw was birds were being.
Yeah, it's a novelty act, really. Yeah, it's a novelty act, really. You know what I mean? And that's it. And the interesting thing is, an act like this in the 40s, for sure, there was a place you could work an act like this. You could have a 12 or 14-minute act and make a living, because there were live bands playing all over the place, and you could, they would hire comedians and jugglers and magicians in between sets.
As prolific as it is now.
And you could work
after that moment. Yeah.
So that act that you see him doing, he worked it. He worked that act.
All right. So now that we've looked at the OG, all right, let's take a look at what I would say is, the culmination of all of those years. And it took a young man from Louisville, Kentucky to redefine the Dove Act and bring it back to its popularity that it once had for a very brief period of time during Channing Pollock's reign. But I'm talking about Lance Burton, because Lance is essentially, most of you guys watching this or here with us today probably first heard about bird magic or dove magic when it came to Lance Burton. And there's a reason why he was and probably is the king still to this day. He's not the OG, but certainly the king, and inspired many of us when we were young. So let's take a look and let's see what is so special about Lance Burton. Check it out. And if you've never seen this, I'm really excited for you. Aren't you, Steve?
Oh, yes.
All right, here we go.
The exclamation point on Dove Magic.
Tell international illusionist Lance Burton.
Unbelievable.
Right, eliminated.
Complete control over the birds.
Yeah, I know, right? Ah, the purple gloves. Those used to be black.
Yeah.
Someone told him he needed more color in the eye. All right.
I always love that. Oh,
Go.
Oh. Boom.
I bet Lance did this act 10,000 times.
Ugh. How
Sure.
many? It's every time you watch it, it's exactly the same. Like the gesture, the what's behind it, just everything about it. I love it. Fantasio saw that and said, "Thank God I can retire." I'm gonna start selling
Dude,
candles
I
again.
didn't do anything else from this act, but I definitely played with that candle thing. I knew Fantasia well.
These moves here, like this was always beautiful.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was innovative. Nobody had done that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Look at that.
Right.
Yeah, truly. Everything he's doing.
And the
Wow.
use of this music, Vivaldi, the classical music. I love this. This is one of my favorite vanishes here.
Mhm.
Boom. I love that so much.
I keep ducking the music.
Yeah. You can turn it down a bit.
Is that better?
Yeah. I mean, it's just.
You can certainly see the similarities here between what Channing was doing.
It's such a clean little newspaper, Terry, you know? Boom.
It looks like they were cleaning his body. It's amazing. Wow.
It's killer, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, let's keep watching. I was gonna stop it, but let's just keep watching. Oh, man.
Got a lot of matches on that lapel. Oh,
Yo.
oh.
And that was a new piece too. He added that little segue later on in the years. I don't remember that in the original.
Yeah, he changed it along the way. There's a lot of different parts and handlings. What year is this? Do we know?
I'd say 95 probably.
Is it that late?
Yeah, I think so.
89.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Incredible.
I didn't remember so many cigarettes in the matches.
Yeah, there's a lot of cigarettes in this
Almost
version.
as much as the cards, right?
And this is straight out of Channing's thing. Think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah,
It's
right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Those are Norm Nelson cards, by the way.
Yeah, totally.
Oh!
Wow. Wow. Even Thursday knows where to go. You know when it's lost, you remember right.
Stuck on the curtain. He goes back and saves them.
Yep.
Oh! Kill them.
Wow.
Beautiful. So it is. Here's what's so beautiful. Is it over?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So here's what's so beautiful about it. It's like the doves seem like they're like willing participants, right? They're like they have a role to play. They know what their role is. When he produces them, they know what to do next. So you just feel good about watching it, right? Because it doesn't feel like you cornered some bird and shoved it in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't
seem
feel
like they're
ripping them
part of
apart.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like part of it.
Yeah, he has like a relationship
Beautiful.
with those animals. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can see that they trust him. And I'm not saying you didn't see that with Channing, but with Channing, he pretty much produces the bird and just hands it off to a woman who plays that role, where the birds take care of themselves,
Right.
right? They take care of their, it's just so beautiful. And when I saw that on New Year's Eve on the Carson show, when he's producing the birds and they're flying back to the thing, it was over.
Yeah.
I was like, that's what I have to do. I have to do that.
That was
And
your
I
Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
I spent hours figuring out how to do, spotlight on the thing. I mean, so many hours trying to teach them to do that. And
He seemed to have another innovation above and beyond Channing, which was no handkerchiefs. Like he was just producing the doves like in midair, like in his hand. He would just have a bird. I mean, there were handkerchiefs too, but it was interesting that he was able to do those barehanded productions. And almost every single time, it wasn't setting it on the wand. It was like he threw it.
yeah,
And the bird would circle around and then go back to that lamppost every single time.
yep,
That's pretty amazing.
yeah.
That's clearly training. That's
And it's going over the audience and coming back.
Wow, it's going that far. Wow.
Well, they would have they had a very specific way. You, as a kid, you could buy the book on how to train your doves, and it had to do with feeding them and going through this very particular routine with them the same way every time for weeks. Really, it was essentially weeks, right? More, yeah.
Always working them hungry. That's the other thing too. You always have to work them hungry because you can't motivate a dove except by food. It's the only way. Like they don't praise doesn't do anything for them, or it's just you have to feed. So when they're hungry, they know. Like someone said, it looks like the lamppost is a feeder, and that's one of the tricks. The birds know if they go there, they're going to get fed.
Right.
And so and they're hungry. So
continuously hungry birds. Like the worst thing you could do is feed your birds before your act.
You never do that. Never do that.
Because that's part of the act is that they get to eat, and that's why they're doing all the stuff is so that they actually
Well, I never withheld food, but you don't want to feed them right before, because just like you, when you get a full stomach, you're feeling a little lazy. You don't want to work as hard, right? You want to sit down, relax.
And do you ever have like birds?
Doves are the same way,
Like, I know it's sort of a gross question, but speaking of feeding them before the show and so forth, but do you have to deal with birds going to, relieving themselves in your clothes? That's just part of it, right?
That's like nothing. You don't even. It's not even a thing. Okay. I mean,
it happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, I had several doves, that I trained. When I would take them out of the cage, I would hold them over the cage, and they would go to the bathroom. Like that was like
really?
They would go to the bathroom. Some of them would pick that up, and some of them wouldn't. But they do it so often.
You were talking last night. Their brains are the size of pencil erasers.
Pencil eraser. I don't know if that's true, but
you're like, how much can you really train a bird to do? Not a whole lot, really. You could, but apparently you can train a pigeon to fly a whole long way with a message tied to its leg. So
and what's interesting about that is that's I don't know if you want to call it innate ability that's in the dove, is that homing pigeon ability, and that's what he uses to get them to go to that lamppost.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody who has real questions about the lamppost and how the birds are trained to do that, you can take a look at really one screenshot, and it doesn't tell the whole story here, because I have a feeling Lance's birds are really trained, but it's a very dark stage. There's a spotlight coming down on Lance from the audience, which means as soon as the birds appear, they're blinded from the front. That would tell the birds to turn around. And when they do, the thing they see is back here in the background. Right. It's that lit up lamppost that looks and familiar to them in every way.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. The other interesting thing too is that he had a ton of birds in Vegas. He had a giant room that were birds. And so
all of those, like we were talking about earlier, all of those will be color coded. So like each one of those birds would be like the first production. There's like 5 birds that all do that first production. Right?
I don't know the details, but that kind of thing would seem to make sense. That you'd have 2 or 3 that do each thing.
And how did you do it? You said you had 15 birds. Like how did that?
Yeah, I don't think I ever efficiently used 15.
Okay.
I think the most I ever had working at one time was 4.
Okay.
And each one would have a different color band on each arm, leg, right?
Yeah.
So you would know the green one does balloon to dove. The red one is the scarf vanish bird, and so on and so forth. Gotcha. So that every time you took a bird, it would do the same thing every time, so that it would know what to expect. because part of it, the thing is too, is you need him to be quiet. Like you can't take a bird and put it into like a dove pen, which is a fairly safe way to produce a bird. And if it's not relaxed, it's going to be scraping and you're going to hear all that. And it's, you know, it's going to make people uneasy.
That's the music.
Yeah. So you need to, you know, they need to know what to expect and they need to be trained, you know. That's why you use loud
dark
music.
secrets of birds.
Oh, there's many dark secrets. But back, just to take it back to Lance again, you know, Lance was inspired when he saw the act that we just watched, the very first, and he was inspired to develop something that was unique. And the thing is, people may compare Lance to Channing and say that somehow that the routines are alike, but in my mind, they're just as different as they are alike. And you know, yes, they're both wearing tuxedos. Yes, there's music playing, and yes, it's a dove act. But I don't think you can take the two and really within the genre you can compare them. But look, you know, it's just it's hard to compare them as equals. I've always thought, and this may be controversial, but I've always preferred Lance Burton's act to Channing's. That's just probably because he was my magician rock star.
But it's hard to argue that it's not the pinnacle of dove magic. That particular act.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to argue. Like, I mean, there are other great dove magicians with great dove acts, but I don't think there's a dove act that inspired more people than that Lance Burton. I mean, like I was joking before, it's like that whole candle bit, like everybody was doing that. Everybody did.
I never did a manipulation act on stage, and I played with the candle thing because
everybody. I mean,
the ideas, right?
And Fantasio was like, "Thank goodness someone picked up those candles. I've got a garage full of them." Totally. You know, and I mean, and Lance makes them look beautiful. You know, if he makes that whole candle portion of the show.
Well, it's the zeitgeist thing, right? It's like right place, right time, the perfect storm. He's the guy in that spot, right? None of those other folks that you mentioned were that. He was the guy that was on Johnny Carson. He's the guy that had this act that was bought in Vegas. He was the first $100 million contract in Vegas, wasn't he?
I know, right? Yeah.
Yes, he signed it, I believe, in 1990 or 95, maybe. One of the two.
95 sounds about right.
95.
Yeah. That was like a big deal. Like he was the biggest
deal.
Signing ever in Vegas.
$100 million for 10 years to do bird magic.
You know, what's interesting is I somewhere I read about Lance being on that New Year's Eve with Johnny Carson, right? So Carson wanted him because he loved magicians, right?
Yeah, right.
And I guess Carson would go around and visit the acts before the show, and he goes into Lance's dressing room, and Lance is freaking out because someone will straighten me out on this if this story is incorrect, because the director of the show said instead of 8 minutes or 12 minutes, you have 4 minutes, and you can't take an act like Lance's dove act and trim it. You know, you just can't cut it down. So he was freaking out. And I think Carson said to him, "You go out there and you do your act. I want to see your act exactly like you do it. And don't you worry about it." And son of a gun, if they didn't let Lance, you know, do the whole thing, obviously, because Carson's Carson. But I mean, just that night, and everyone should go to YouTube. You can find it. I think it's 1982. Okay. And it's super young Lance Burton. And this, if you want to see a moment that breaks someone's career, that was it. That moment right there.
All right, Lance Burton on what? It's on Johnny Carson.
New Year's Eve, 1982.
Yeah, let's see it now. That's awesome.
I mean, if I can find it. Lance Burton, here it is. Yeah, look at this. Shall we watch it or some other?
Well, we may not make it all the way through, but just get a flavor for it, you know.
Okay.
There it is.
You didn't give us the sound, buddy.
All right, hang on.
It's really low. It's coming through.
Hollywood called The Body Shop. Would you welcome very clever young magician Lance Burton?
What year is this?
1982, New Year's Eve.
Goodness.
I was like mesmerized.
It's hard to look at him. He's so young.
Yeah. And you could see the tightening that went into the act, how he tightened it. There's a lot of space and air in it.
Totally. Same music, though.
Notice how long the tails are, too. So. Boom. That was the moment.
Yeah. Good.
So beautiful.
Does he look really nervous to you?
Yeah.
He's really young. I wish I knew how old he was right here.
Oh, that's right. He used to do that.
Yeah, he used to do this. That got cut out. Yeah, I forgot that. I think Ron Porter said he wanted the character to be a vampire early on.
Oh, interesting. That definitely is. This is definitely pointing towards that.
That I never heard that before. No wonder that.
I heard that.
Because he has this weird look on his face that doesn't look normal Lance Burton to me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The music choice definitely points to that too, right?
Look at that. The way that bird is just under his control, you know?
Also, he wasn't timing any of this stuff with the music. This music was just playing.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
You get it. He's just
we've seen enough. Wow, I have never seen that, Steve. So
you
that
should go back and watch that.
That was your moment, huh?
Yeah, that was pretty much it right there. And then a friend in school had a pair of doves. And so then we used to work together, you know, and he let me produce a dove out of a dove pen. I got a huge reaction. And I was just like, I got to get a pair of doves. You know, it was like, I have to. And that's pretty much where that all came from.
So Ron Porter, thank you, Ron. He says Lance Burton won FISM in 1982 with this act. It says that Ron says that he worked his act out at the Body Shop in Hollywood, which is a strip club, I believe.
Exactly.
And he also did that Carson appearance just before FISM.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's raw, real.
That's the moment.
It really was the moment that broke him right there. And I wouldn't discover him for another, 7, 8, 9 years, Steve.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So killer, though. I mean,
it was so hard back in the day, right, Adam, to find magicians. Because if you didn't have TV Guide, like you wouldn't know who was going to be on these shows. And like you had to make a concerted effort, you know, to grab the TV Guide and go through every late night show and see who the guests were and see if you were going to miss something. Because there was no internet. There's no way to, you know, find out this stuff, you know. You had to really be searching.
This show is called Old People Talk About Magic.
Back in the old days, I want to tell you.
You kids
I had to flip through newsprint.
Kids don't know how good you got it.
You kids have no idea what magic was like before the internet.
There was no YouTube, and we liked it.
I seriously do remember, though, that it was Lance Burton that inspired me to become a bird magician. I copycatted his act as much as I could. Then I think I tried to copycat Tony Clark's Phantom of the Opera act. I mean, I was like a teenager, and I was trying to figure all this stuff out, and I didn't know how to be original, how to do it myself. But I do remember seeing Greg Fruin and seeing how it had evolved. And of course, we have to mention the great Tom Sony. We're not going to show the footage, but of course, Tom Sony has a place in the history of bird magic. It's just that Tom Sony's act was so much more than that. His act wasn't just a bird act. It was different. It was different.
Yeah, and go look at the Afternoon Astonishment we did on him, right? We did a whole show on all of his magic, including the bird act. yeah, Johnny is very prolific. Every kind of magic that there is, Johnny did.
That's right. That's right. Well, this is a little taste today of the evolution of dove magic, and there's more to be said about this, because now maybe in our next episode, I don't know, maybe this next week, we'll look at the more modern stuff, because we're definitely watching sort of, you know, the early evolution of it. And when I say early, I mean it was late in the century, but obviously early to the genre of bird magic. And what if we watch some of the Dan Sperry's? What if we watch some of the Greg Fruins and see what turn that bird magic took, that dove magic took, starting around, I don't know, the late 90s or early 90s, something like that. It really started, you started to see colored doves a lot, you know? So there's a lot more to this story, folks, but we're out of time today. So do us a favor, hit like on this video, let people know that this is a good job we're doing. And if you like it, go ahead and hit subscribe, and go ahead and you'll be notified when we go live with new videos. By the way, we are Conjuror Community. If you guys want to try out a proper magic club, check the link in the description and try it out. You'll enjoy it. Thanks for joining us today on Afternoon Astonishment. We will see you guys next time.